Welcome to Vampires and Mermaids. I'm Erin.
I'm Risha.
And we're back. What are we talking about today, Risha?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So this one's real life.
Ooh.
Again. And this one is one that you sent me.
Oh.
Yeah. And I have it entitled Brick in the Mouth.
Oh, yes. Okay. I did. I sent that to you via TikTok.
Yeah, I think
Instagram,
that's the one.
something.
One of those. It was a reel of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, if you're not already following us on Instagram, go ahead and follow Vamps and Mers.
And so the whole idea of the brick in the mouth of somebody who is in the grave is pretty much it. Let me back up. So archaeologists are finding corpses that have bricks in their mouths, like their jaw is like open entirely. And so they've determined that this was to stop them from returning from the dead. So in Poland, as of 2022, they have found, archaeologists, people, have found sickles around bodies' necks to keep them from rising from the grave. However, there is a possible ulterior motive for that one. Again, when Michael comes on, we could always ask him as well. But the thought is that they were being claimed for Demeter instead of Hades, because they had the whole feud with Demeter's daughter Persephone being stolen, and so she was claiming them, that kind of idea. I haven't found anything much online about that, but it makes sense. A Naxxerer is another word for a vampire.
Okay.
And that is what this lady who had the brick in the mouth was called. In 16th century, there was a mass grave in Venice. A brick was placed to prevent her from feasting on plague victims. So it was during one of the bubonic plague outbreaks. This was the 1631. And in a town that's about 2 miles from Venice, Italy, it's called Lazaretto Nuovo, I believe. This corpse that was in the mass grave was called Carmilla. It's a nickname. And that is another name for a very famous vampire, which I will cover likely very soon, if not next. Because she predates Dracula.
Whoa.
By 25 years.
Okay.
She was from 1872. Dracula is 1897. And she is often called a lesbian-coded character. But anyway, so they named her Carmilla in honor of that story. Matteo Barini was the lead scientist on the dig and said she was probably thought to be, again, a Naxxerer, a vampire. It's a European one. And it's somebody that kills people from the grave before being able to then rise as a full vampire. So it's kind of an in-between state of being, you're dead, but you're trying to get enough blood or souls or something to then become a full-fledged vampire.
Gotcha.
And they were bodies that people believed were responsible for spreading the plague around. And because they were not completely dead and captured by some demonic influence. So the thing about mass grave burials especially, you don't have a coffin. And even at this time period, it was starting to become a practice to use coffins, but most people were buried in shrouds.
Sure.
And so these Naxxerers would chew their shroud inside their graves and spread the plague in a sort of black magical way. That's where the brick came in. The brick would stop them from chewing out of their shroud and then getting to other people.
Sure.
So this Carmilla was likely not thought of as a vampire in life, but they have evidence that this mass grave was reopened after she had been buried. And so her body was still wrapped in a shroud, but not completely decomposed. And whoever opened the grave likely saw her body with the shroud decomposed around her mouth.
Sure.
And then assumed the body was possessed and put a brick there. I went into the whole shroud thing because I don't have too much more on this.
Yeah.
In Europe, between 1500 and 1690, burial was a body would be washed and placed in a shroud that was knotted or tied at the heads and feet. Special shroud pins were sometimes used, and if you were really fancy, you had a little bit of ornamentation to them.
Classic.
And it was normally women's work to, wash and prepare the body. I think of, again, going back to Jesus, that was something happened then too. And they would be buried with their hands on their pelvis or at their sides. And this was when coffins started becoming more common, but most people still had the shroud.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Carmilla.
Cool.
Which I'd like to go into Carmilla because then there's even another step that I can go back further. So I might do Carmilla next.
Ooh, exciting. Which is the namesake of this person.
Yeah, this person was nicknamed Carmilla because they don't know her actual name in life. But Carmilla was 25 years before Dracula.
I'm going to take a very different turn from burial shrouds. But I have more things for you. Because that was something I sent you. I have two for you. And you'll notice that it's on the paper I usually write my notes on.
Yeah.
Because I started looking into both of these and was like, they're kind of like mermaid adjacent.
Ooh.
Okay, so I was like, this is cool. Like, maybe they didn't have a fishtail, but like one is a one-legged creature that lived in the jungle. Huh. And then it turned vampiric. Oh. And I'm like, oh, that's for Risha. And then I did it again. Literally one side, other side. And I was like, for fuck's sake. So I just ripped the page out, and this is for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Was this from that list from the lady from last?
Yes.
Okay, so she's like, these are dark mermaids because they're vampires.
Well, part of it, yes. So some of them were from her video that I talked about, Piper CJ, and then some were from when I was looking at Yurda from, or Yura, I already forgot how I pronounced her name, from last week's episode. When I was researching her, I found some other references to creatures who were not necessarily mermaid, but again, kind of mermaid adjacent. And actually, I fell down kind of a foot thing. That's not going to be talked about today. But it was basically someone made the connection that oftentimes when women are depicted in lore, if they are evil or maybe kind of vigilante, something's different with their feet.
That's weird.
Right?
Pardon my coffee ASMR here. Oh.
If you're going to do it, you might as well do it.
That was kind of nice.
That was kind of nice. New rule. We have to pour into the microphone, not into the microphone, but in front of the microphone. So, yeah, I started looking into that, and there a few of them that came up were the two that I wrote down for you.
Wait, their feet, though? I'm so confused.
So, well, I can't remember which one's which, but one of them, I think that I gave you, basically is like a one-legged entity. And then another one has, instead of legs, they have a kitchen utensil. It's like a Spanish kitchen utensil. it's a dingle hopper. But it was something used for like stirring drinks, but they had that instead of feet. I don't know if it was like they had one instead of 2 feet, or if like instead of feet they had two. I didn't look into it because then it turned vampiric before I got much further.
I'm excited.
And then I also looked, deer women of Native American tribes also popped up, and that was another one who has something going on with their feet.
The hooves.
So yeah, I might just do like a low-key foot fetish episode at some point. And just talk about that. I think you've heard my foot fetish story from high school. I might share that. No shame. I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum.
We can both share foot fetish stories.
Perfect. Yeah. If there's judgment coming from our voices right now, it's not necessarily, in my part at least, I'm pretty sure yours too, it's not about the fetish. It's about the way it tends to be brought up or presented in a way that would make anyone kind of a little standoffish.
Like you just said, I'm not going to yuck your yum.
Yep.
Just the way you present your yum is important.
Yes. Even if I'm into that same yum, I might not be by the way you present it to me. There's tact is important when discussing those things.
And respect.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll get further into that in a different episode probably.
Woo. That's when we should start our Patreon.
Yes. So I'm doing something very different that after I got frustrated by trying to follow these two that ended up being vampires, I kind of just got annoyed. I was like, fuck it. I'm going to cover something that's not really a vampire. Sorry, not really a mermaid. but I want to.
Oh,
But I'm gonna make you guess because I think you're gonna know what it is.
Okay.
So I'm gonna be a little vague at the beginning. But the reason the entity that I picked this week is a mythical creature that has heavy transformative and or growth abilities, but they don't really have like a human aspect to it. But they do have kind of a transformation aspect. They live in kind of all manner of water. Typically fresh water from what I found, but I also read that it doesn't really matter. I think they could live in salt water as well. But they have to live, or they do live downstream when they're young, especially because they're really poor swimmers.
They're not humanoid, though?
No, they're not humanoid. Nope.
Okay.
But they do have a transformative ability, which I will get into. I'm being a little vague for right now. They have many predators, and they are basically defenseless. But they're really hardy, which is interesting. And kind of the only thing they can do other than swim around is they can essentially like splash themselves out of the water. But that just makes them more likely to fall prey to their predators. So, do you have a guess?
The only thing I'm thinking of is Ponyo.
Not Ponyo. Kind of adjacent. I'm talking about the most useless Pokemon, Magikarp.
Oh my god. Oh my goodness.
So
no.
What?
I just listened to Pokemon Rollout, like their first and second episode.
Do they talk about Magikarp?
They have a whole competition around Magikarp to find the silliest Magikarp.
Oh my gosh.
Because then you win.
That's wonderful.
And then like immediately after, Nick, the DM, my brother, when they ask about what food's around, he's like, there's Magikarp on a stick.
Well, I will be talking a little bit about them.
That's so fun.
I figured they're not really mermaids, but they are a mer being.
Sure.
That's mythical, has mythical properties, and goes through a massive transformation.
Love it.
So the Magikarp, is it Magikarp or Magikarp?
Magikarp.
Magikarp?
Yep.
Okay. So the Magikarp is, quote, known as the most useless Pokemon.
Yeah.
They have large, unfocused eyes. They look like a pretty typical kind of carp-like fish. Mm-hmm. They have a pectoral fin, or they have pectoral fins, tail fin and dorsal fin. They have kind of a gaping mouth with fairly prominent lips. I'm not a Pokemon person. I should disclaim that. I've watched my husband play a handful of times. He doesn't even play that much, but I've watched it a handful of times. I know you are.
Yeah, I
know
like
your
Pokemon.
significant other is.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Kinda. And I know your brothers very much are.
Yeah.
Hence Pokemon Rollout, the podcast.
Right.
I don't know these things. So if I sound like an idiot, it's because I am, as most things I cover. But that's what's fun, right? So I did not realize when looking into this that not only I knew there were a lot of different Pokemon games, I did not realize that there is a specific Magikarp jump game that's sort of like focused entirely around Magikarp. In that game, they have 31 different color patterns, but typically in the more standard games, they're just, I think, red. Yeah, they're typically just red. And remember, I'm talking about the Magikarp. We'll talk about the rest later. We're talking just about them in their gross little fish bodies.
Aw, they're cute though.
They are kind of cute. In that Magikarp jump game, it takes place in Hoppy Town, and depending on what kind of fishing rod you can have like an old rod, an old so-so rod. That does have an effect on what patterns of fish you can catch, apparently. And players can compete to see whose fish can jump the highest. Because pretty much Magikarp's, I think, only move, or one of their only moves, is Splash, which is jumping. They can get up to 7 feet high in their jumps, apparently. Lore says that the Magikarp of old were able to jump over mountains. So apparently they degraded really severely.
Yeah.
Now, no one's seen the Magikarp jump over mountains, so that also might just be fantasy. But that's the lore of old, at the very least.
Maybe they were really small mountains.
That is also possible, but also kind of an oxymoron. So I think there is a height requirement to be considered a mountain.
Now?
Well, I guess that's fair. Some of the stats on the Magikarp, their effort value, or EV score, they have nothing except for 1 under speed, which I don't know much about Pokemon, but I know that's pretty bad. They're a water type.
Yeah.
Shocker. They're a 50-50 gender, female or male, with a 43.9% catch rate, and they have a very slow leveling rate. At the Magikarp form, they weigh 22 pounds, which is 9.9 kilograms, and their height, which I don't know if that's actual height or if that's, I'm assuming that's more length, is 2 feet 11 inches, which is 0.9 meters. So quite large fish still. The only difference between females and males are that the females have white whiskers. In some Pokemon games, that's like kind of a platinum silver. And then the male have yellow or gold whiskers.
I was going to say that sounds later than when I stopped at the generations.
Yeah, I think that's more newer ones. As mentioned before, Splash is, I think, their only move, though I did see that there is like a hidden move in some versions that you can unlock. I didn't go too far into depth on that. But Splash, they can basically just jump straight up. They can't change direction, which makes it pretty useless. It doesn't deal any damage or anything. And apparently, actually, Splash can make them more likely to be attacked specifically by Pidgeot?
Pidgeot.
Pidgeot,
yeah.
which is a pigeon Pokemon, I assume.
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of. I mean, it's a little more ferocious.
Oh, yeah, it'll attack a 22-pound fish, so yeah, I guess.
It's super effective against it. I'm not sure.
It sure sounds like it. That being said, even though they appear quite useless, they are very hardy and can apparently live in water of basically any condition. So it's stated specifically water of any salinity. I can't say that word. Saltiness, basically. Pollution levels. They're fine. But Magikarp eventually do level up. You splash and you splash and you splash and you eventually hit level 20.
Or you have them out battle like at the front of your party, and then you just take them away, and then they get half XP.
Oh,
Yep.
you do that.
Yeah.
There's a little trick for you, I guess. Okay, because eventually, when you get them to level 20, they turn into Gyarados.
Yeah.
Is that correct pronunciation?
Yeah. That's how I say it.
I wrote out the pronunciation.
Oh, wow.
So
Yep,
I know.
Gyarados.
Gyarados, awesome. Which are terrifying. They are typically blue, so we have a color change. Though I think there are some ways that you can get them to turn red. I don't know. There are a few different versions. They are extremely violent, and they can actually go into an outrage state or an outrage move where they destroy small towns even. Like they can just wipe out entire areas. So big difference. The Pokemon Wiki had a cute little paragraph, not cute, but a little paragraph about how like this is the extreme change from Magikarp to Gyarados is because the brain is stimulated through the evolution process. I'm basically like, so they evolved. They evolved. Basically, that evolution made them really freaking violent. There's also a Mega Gyarados.
Oh, yeah.
That's even more deadly. Now, Gyarados, I looked up their size, and I'm not sure if this is Mega or Gyarados. I think this is just Gyarados. They grow so much from that 22-pound fish that they are then a 518-pound Gyarados, or there we go. I looked at the wrong part. I was like, that's meters. Or a 234 kilos creature, and they stand at 21 feet 4 inches or 6.4 meters. So freaking giant. They have major anger problems, but they can be trained by loving and caring Pokemon trainers. And one thing that I saw says that they're really not violent. They just have anger issues, which I guess, after being called the most useless Pokemon, who blames them really?
After being bullied and defenseless.
Right? Yeah. I did read that the Gyarados in the Alola, Alola region will flee if they see a school of wishy-washy, which are teeny tiny little fish. So I thought that was kind of cute. And then last thing that I have on the Gyarados is just a couple of fun facts. One of their moves they can use is Hyper Beam, which is essentially an incineration blast, which incinerates anything in their path. Way to go, little Magikarp, live your dreams. And they can travel so fast that they can actually split large ships in two. So Magikarp rules the day. Biggest glow up, in my opinion. I know nothing about other Pokemon, but I vote Magikarp for biggest glow up.
Yeah, that's kind of its shtick.
Right, like, listen, start from the bottom, now we hear. Like, I don't know.
Or Togepi.
What's Togepi?
She's like a little egg.
Oh.
Like it's cracked and stuff, and then she evolves into a bigger thing.
Can she do any damage, though, when she's little?
Yeah.
Oh, see?
Yeah, right. See? Yeah.
Magikarp, man.
Mm-hmm.
Always believe in yourself. So, not really mermaid, but I thought it was fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
So,
enjoy that.
Thanks for listening to me talk about something I know nothing about once again.
Magikarp should feel like a mermaid.
Right? I think so.
Yeah.
Gyarados just need love.
Yeah.
Need some snuggles. All right, do we have any housekeeping we need to hit this week? As always, follow us on Instagram at Vamps and Mers. You can email us at you can just email us vampsandmers with the and spelled out at gmail.com. Let us know if there's anything you want to correct us on nicely. And if there's anything you want us to cover, we're always looking for fun stuff. You can even just shoot those Instagram reels straight over.
Woo.
Big fan of that.
Yeah, we'd love that.
Otherwise, stay thirsty and keep wet.
Cover your necks and watch your tails.
Obscurantism and obfuscation.
Orally observed, gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Obviated objects of oblivion.
Obambulating about.
Offered unto you.
Offered unto you.
Offered unto you.
In the Tapestry Radio Network.
TapestryRadio.org.
From our fancy to yours.